Hey folks, okay, we're going to do the video for 5-16 to use or not to use the quadratic equation. That is the question. Now, quadratic equation is another way to solve quadratics. It will solve quadratics that are not factorable. So let's take a look at how this works. Okay, here's the quadratic equation. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The quadratic formula, this should say y equals, the quadratic formula is, or the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. We've been dealing with those for a while if you've been factoring and doing all that. So now what we can do is, let's say we come across one that's not factorable. We can plug this information into this formula and it will solve it for us. All right, let's take a look at the first example. So the first example here is 3x squared minus 14x minus 5. What I did is I took number 7 and I set it equal to 0 already. If you're not sure how to do that, I'm going to do that on the last example I do. So now first I'm going to do is check to see if this is factorable. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to multiply these two and get negative 15. Then I have to figure out what multiplies to negative 15 and adds to 14. Well, I have 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Those are the only factors of 15. 4 won't work, then 5 and 3 will come back. All right. Now, 3 and 5 will never add up to negative 14, but 1 and 15 will. Positive 1 and negative 15. So I'm going to do that. This is negative 15. Then this is plus 1 equals 0. Now I'm going to divide out the 3 here. Okay, I could divide that 3 out. X minus 5. I have another video on exactly how to factor these. It's in Unit 5, so you can go back and look. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So x equals 5. There's that. Minus 1, minus 1. Got 3x equals negative 1. Divide by 3. And x equals negative 1 over 3. Okay, so there's my solutions to that. This was factorable, so I don't need to use the quadratic formula. Let's take a look at what that looks like on the graph for 1 second. Okay, here's this guy graphed. All right, and we said that the solutions was negative 1, 3, and 5. And we can see right there they're pointing at the x-intercepts. So remember, when we're factoring or solving a quadratic, what we're doing is we're finding the x-intercepts of this parabola. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. All right, so now I'm going to take a look at this one. First thing I'm going to do is see if this thing is factorable. 3 times 16 is 48. So let's double check that. So does anything multiply to 48 and add up to 10? Let's check real quick. So I have negative 48. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So 1 and 48. 2 and 24. Let's see, 48 divided by 3 is 16. That won't do it. 48 divided by 4 is 12. That won't do it. 5 won't work. 48 divided by 6 is 8. That won't do it. 48 divided by 7 won't work. Then 8 by 6. So I've repeated, and none of these will add up to 10. Okay? That only took me 30 seconds to check, right, to see if this would work. Now, that's not going to work, so I have to use the quadratic formula. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my A, which is 3, B, which is negative 10, and C, which is negative 16. I'm going to use the quadratic formula, negative B plus or minus B squared minus 4AC over 2A. All right, I always like to write out the quadratic formula. Helps me plug it in. So now I have negative 10 into negative B makes a positive 10, plus or minus. Then negative 10 squared, put the parentheses around that for your calculator. 4, 3, and then negative 16. Oops, I'm wiping this off as I write. Okay. The trials and tribulations of being left-handed. Now, so that's 2 and 3. Okay. Now I'm going to plug this into the calculator, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm only going to plug the square root part in first without the square root. So I'm going to get that answer. Okay? And the reason why I'm going to do that is because if I get a negative answer, there's a specific way to handle that, and I will not get it if I put it on the square root. All I'll get is a domain error from the calculator. Okay. So I plugged that in, and I got 292. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify 292, square root 292. And that's 2 square root 73. So I've got 10 plus or minus 2 square root 73 over 6. Now I can simplify this. Okay, all of these guys, this guy's in jail. We can't talk to him, right? But these guys are all out of jail, and we could reduce that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reduce that all by 2. So I got 5 plus or minus 1 square root 73 over 3. Okay, so I could leave the answer like this. That is okay. This is a solution. I'm going to show you what it looks like on paper in a graph. Or I can write it as 2 separate parts. So I can say 5 plus 1 square root 73 over 3 and 5 minus 1 square root 73 over 3. Both of those are solutions. Now, for the sake, this is the way we'd keep the answer, but for the sake of what I'm going to show you next, I'm going to convert these to decimals. So I have fraction button 5 plus square root 73 over 3. Okay? And that is 4.51. 4.51 irrational, if you could see that. Let me see if I can bring that a little bit closer. I don't know if you guys could see it on the camera, but 4.514667915. It goes on forever. All right, now I'm going to do that with the other one, the minus. Okay? And here we go again. Irrational, negative 1, 0.181334. It goes on forever. Okay, so I'm going to write that down over here. All right. So now I just want you to recognize that those are the solutions in decimal form, but here we go, being left-handed again. Here, what I want you to understand is that you can leave the answers like this. In fact, most teachers and most tests would prefer the answer like this, but if you have to graph it, we're going to convert it to decimal, and that's what we're going to do. So let's take a look at this guy in the graph. Okay. So here's the graph of that very equation we found the equation of. We solved using the quadratic formula. There's the negative 1.18, okay? And there's the 4.51 as the x-intercepts. So in the end, the quadratic formula does the same thing as factoring does, but a little bit more work, and to be honest, a little bit more tedious. Okay, let's take a look at the last example on here. So here's the last example. Just want to do it again. All right, I can tell you ahead of time that this is not factorable, but you really want to check. It doesn't take long to check, and to be honest, you would save yourself a lot of time by checking. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this equal to 0. Like I said before, if you need to know how to do that, here's how it works out. Then minus 4. Okay, these guys do not all add up because they look different. So we're going to write out 9x squared plus 6x minus 4 equals 0. You can only do this when this is set equal to 0. That's the only time the quadratic formula works. Now I'm going to say A equals 9, B equals 6, and C equals negative 4. And now, knowing that it's not factorable, I checked that already or whatever, right? I'm going to plug that into the quadratic formula. Like I said before, I always like to write it out. It helps me plug it in. So that's 4ac over 2a. It saves me from making an error. So now I have negative 6. I'm going to write it over here. I think I'm going to run out of room, to be honest. Negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared minus 4, 9, negative 4. Okay? Over 2 times 9. Now again, writing it out kind of helps me make sure I don't miss anything. It's very easy to miss the 2a. It's very easy to miss a term in here. Watch your signs. All right, now I'm going to do just like I did before. I'm going to plug in the information inside the square root. Watching my parentheses, that's the best way to do it. Squared minus 4, 9, negative 4. Okay, so then I hit enter. Let's see. All right, I hope you guys could see that. And I get 180. Now I'm going to simplify that. Again, man, guys, I have to tell you, these calculators that do this kind of work make this job piles easier. If you don't have one, there's a number of different brands that do it. You definitely want to pick one up. And that simplifies. So negative 6 plus or minus 6 square root 5 over 18. Keeping in mind that this is currently not the preferred answer, right? The preferred answer is this simplified. So if you leave the answer like this, the likelihood of it getting marked wrong is very high, all right? This answer, too, is not in simplest form. In fact, if you're taking a multiple choice test, none of these answers would appear. This is the answer that's going to appear. Is this simplified by 2? So I'm going to have negative 3 plus or minus 3 square root 5 over 9. Whoops. Those are 2's. See how easy it is to make a mistake? Okay. I could leave the answer like this. This is acceptable. Or I could split it into negative 2 plus 2 square root 5 over 9 and negative 2 minus 2 square root 5 over 9. Either of those will work for you. Okay, guys? I hope you guys found this video helpful.